Hello, Brother Sewing and Crafting family. Angela Wolf here. Family. That was like a really long family. But that's because I'm so excited for today's show. We've got Emily coming on, and we've got a back to school project we've got sewing and ScanNCut. So we get a little bit of everything. So say hi, say where you're from. So great to see you all. Did you catch the show on Tuesday? A lot of cool things that brothers come out with and a lot of great projects. So make sure if you're on Facebook, share this to your page. Then you can always go back to see it. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to click subscribe and like, and you'll never miss a new episode. So let's bring Emily Thompson to the party. Hey, Emily, how are you?
I'm good. Hi. Glad to be here today.
It is so nice to see you again. I know a lot of people saw us in Nashville. It was so much fun with all the brand ambassadors. It's so nice to see in person, right?
Yes. I had a blast. It was great. I told my husband, I said, I just talked sewing for 3 days straight. It was so great.
It's fantastic.
So no one does that with me here. No one wants to just talk about sewing things. So I had a great time.
It's kind of like our binge crafting, total creativity. Oh my! Yeah. Speaking of creativity, yeah, you're doing something really fun today and useful.
Yeah. So we're gonna make like a little cinch sack, and I know these are super common and super popular. My kids each have several because they use them each for different things. But some of the things that they use them for are if they have like a club that meets once a week. We love just keeping all the things for that club in a cinch sack and then hanging it in their room, and then doesn't have to get unpacked or repacked. They just take it each week. So we use it for clubs that the kids are in. My son took his soccer cleats to school this morning in a cinch sack that I had made him a couple years ago. And even if it gets thrown into another bag, he just loves having his shoes like contained and not sort of floating around, and especially if they're things that are going to get dirty like soccer cleats, then it keeps them contained. Library books, like there's so many uses for these sort of fabric sacks. And the thing with vinyl is you can personalize it for the event or the club or the purpose you're using it for. So that's what we're going to do today. I have this fun sweatshirt fabric, sweatshirt fleece. So we're going to make it out of this mountain fabric. And then I have the logo for my kids' school, and I'm actually just going to cut that out of vinyl, and we're going to stick it on here, and then it can be used for my middle son for some school things that he needs. Because he just started middle school a week and a half ago, so he's trying to get his life organized and figuring out all the middle school things that he needs to do.
Oh gosh. I love this idea of the bag. Hey Mom, are you watching? Because I know she was watching my nephews the other day, and she's like, oh my gosh, here we go with school again. Everything's everywhere. They forget something. And this is a great idea to remember.
Yeah. So it's really fun just to have things separated. And that's why you can't really have too many of these, because you can always find another use. And they're just simple to hang up in your room or by your front door. And keep things organized. So hopefully that is what we will accomplish today.
Sounds good. All right, we'll take it away.
All right, sounds good. All right, I am going to switch over to my other machine here. So if you want to just take me out for just a second, I'll get myself organized.
While she's switching, I see you all on here. Hello. It's so great to see you. And actually, I can think of a lot of other ideas for these little bags. On the fishing boat, as you're talking, Emily, I'm thinking, oh, this would be great for carrying stuff back and forth to the boat. I always have my little workout stuff that I bring on the boat. And Wynn's always laughing. Last time I brought 15-pound weights, and he's like, seriously?
I know. Well, I throw those things in the car all the time. So as long as you're not... as long as you're not needing to fly with weights, I like to take mine with me everywhere we go. But yeah, definitely not a flight-friendly situation. So,
definitely not.
We're going to start here on the sewing machine, and we're going to just take a look at putting the basics of this bag together. And then we'll pop over and I will add on the hardware that goes on this bag. We'll thread the laces through this bag, and we'll add some vinyl. So the first thing I'm going to do is you need to decide what is the top and the bottom of your bag. And mine, because of the fabric being directional, these mountains are going to go face up. So I'm going to sew, this being the upper right side. And we're going to start sewing 2 inches down from the top. And you can measure exactly, or you can estimate. I'm going to go ahead and estimate. And I'm going to use a zigzag stitch. I'm going to lengthen it or widen it to a width of 4. And we're going to sew just along the edge of this fabric. You can use whatever seam allowance you're most comfortable with. I'm just going to kind of keep the edge of my foot, my presser foot, as my guide. But again, this is super forgiving, and you really can make this whatever size project you want. If you're looking for the exact tutorial that I created and sort of the exact sizing situation, I have a whole tutorial written up on my site that is going to, looks like I could use a little walking foot here. It's catching a little bit. You could go ahead and check that out on Life So Savory. And if you just search drawstring bag, and I actually am going to switch to a straight stitch because this is being weird on there. Search drawstring bag, and then you can find a photo tutorial walking you through all the steps that I'm going to be showing you in this video today. But you can also come back and watch this video anytime you want. And a great way to do that is if you're watching this on Facebook, if you share it to your own timeline, then it'll be there and you won't have to come back to the Brother timeline and search through all of the posts they have there. But you can definitely watch on the video, or you can check out the photo tutorial anytime you want. So I'm sewing all 3 sides of this bag except for the top. And we're going to sew back up the other side, leaving that 2-inch opening along the top, as I did when we first started. And you could go ahead, and I probably should have put a couple clips in here, but all of a sudden I realized I was sitting at the sewing machine and didn't have it clipped. So I just started sewing, but you could put a few clips in here and help it to lay a little bit flatter and not have to line it up like I keep doing. And you can see how the straight stitch is sewing really nice. The zigzag stitch was kind of making the fabric bunch up. So if I was going to use that, I guess I would have had to go back and add the walking foot to the situation to help it feed through a little easier. But this straight stitch is going to work well. So this is a sweatshirt fleece. It doesn't have a lot of stretch. It has just the smallest amount. So I'm not really worried about threads breaking by using a straight stitch with a stretch material. But if you are using a stretch material, you do want to make sure that your seam has some give in it so that when the fabric gives, the seam gives as well. All right. I see my light behind, I know, is a little bit bright. I don't know if that's better or worse if I close that up. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is open up the side of the bag. I see someone said no ironing required. Of course. If it's a project I'm making, although I will be ironing on the vinyl, but I do occasionally iron. I don't want you to think I never iron, but I absolutely don't do it unless I can't figure out a way around it. Okay.
That's so funny, Emily. I have to say, I iron while I'm sewing, but I don't iron in life.
Yeah, I know. And I definitely don't iron in life. I have that like spray stuff that gets the wrinkles out. If I have a t-shirt that's wrinkled, I just spray it. But there are times with sewing you definitely need it. So I do it. All right. So I've taken that seam allowance and it's pretty narrow, maybe 1/4 to 3/8 inch. And you can see here how I'm folding that back over. And then I'm just going to straight stitch to top stitch and top stitch that seam allowance over on that 2-inch opening at the top. And this is going to be where we put the drawstring through, and that will give that a nice finished edge. And I'll show you in a minute when we fold this over, it will be even further enclosed, but this is just going to finish that raw edge. And this is not fabric that's going to fray. So I am not like finishing all these raw edges, but if you were using a linen, which would make a beautiful cinch sack, or another fabric that really might fray, you probably would want to finish all of these edges with your serger before you're sewing up these steps that I'm doing. And then after you finish the raw edges, you could go ahead and I need a different foot or something. You could go ahead and sew it just like I'm sewing, but I would probably have pre-finished the 4 raw edges of my bag first. And that would be really easy to just go on the serger, finish those edges, or with a zigzag if you don't have a serger, but just finish those raw edges of any fabric that you think is going to fray, and then come back and just sew up the same steps that we're sewing up here. So I'm just doing it without maybe that first step, depending on what fabric you're using. Okay, so now I'm going to fold over that top casing. And you can see here, this is why we left 2 inches at the top, because we're going to fold over that top inch. We have this finished edge right here that we just used, and I'm going to place some clips now and keep this casing folded over. You don't need a full inch for a thin lace. You know, our lace is not this thick, but I like having some room. We are going to be putting 2 threads through this, so it's nice to have some room for them to move around. And then we also, this would give you more space if you wanted to use like a ribbon or something that was a little bit thicker through there. So we're going to do the same thing on both sides, starting with the edge, folding it over, and then folding over approximately 1 inch all the way across the bag, the top opening of the bag. I don't know if you can hear, my computer's right here, and just the fan started going crazy on it. So it's like making a weird blowing noise.
It's probably like, you know what? This live show is so much fun. I can't handle it.
I know. It feels like it's so loud, but it's probably not that loud. All right. So I think I'm going to sew on, I don't know. It doesn't really matter if you sew on the right or the wrong. You just need to be able to make sure you're sewing that edge closed. I wonder if I could go back to my zigzag stitch again. I'm going to lengthen it a little bit so that hopefully it's not bunching things up. And then we're going to try to use that zigzag to sew. I can kind of feel, because this is thick sweatshirt fabric, feel right here where the edge is. And hopefully that will allow me to sew kind of right on that edge. I've got gray thread here on my sewing machine, so it blends in pretty well with what we're doing, and we're just going to sew right along there. You can also use, you know, your guide over here to make sure you're sewing pretty even. I'm not 100% sure I folded over exactly even, because you know, you saw I didn't really measure. I just folded it over. So it's probably more reliable for me to feel with my fingers, but I also do want to keep an eye over here, and that just helps me to keep sewing pretty straight as I'm going across. So you're sewing all the way across from one end of the top of the bag to the other, and then do make sure that you are back stitching, because these openings are going to get some tugging on them as the strings are opened and closed and pulled along the way. So then we're going to do the same. Yeah.
What size seam allowance are you using?
Well, right now I'm using kind of an inch, because you can see that I've got, this is the folded over casing. And so I'm sewing here on this like inch mark.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. So if you fold it over a wider casing, you of course would want to sew, still sewing on the edge of that fold of your casing. But I recommend probably between 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch. And you have this nice 1 inch mark on the sewing machine. And actually that's, you know, a great place to kind of keep lined up. I find that one pretty easy on keeping things lined up. All right. So we are almost to the edge.
Yeah. While you're over there, Emily,
yes.
Cindy wants to know, what machine are you on? And yes, it does have an automatic. It has an automatic needle threader and cutter, Cindy.
That's
but what
right.
machine is that one?
I'll show you the needle or the thread cutter here in just a moment. I use it always.
What is the number? I can't remember the number on that machine.
It's a 5200. It's the VM 5200. So you can see right here, this is the thread cutting button. Push that, and then I pull it out. So I love having how easy it is with the thread cutting. Super simple. Okay, and then you can see here, my zigzag is right along the edge of that fabric, or where I folded it over on both sides. I must have did a pretty good job folding over 1 inch, because my 1 inch sewing on the 1 inch got it pretty even. All right, so now I'm going to, you can go ahead and flip me out for just a second. We're going to move back up to the work table and finish up the spell.
I will switch her out while she switches the cameras so you all don't get seasick, right?
That's right.
Okay, so keep asking your questions because Emily will take time to answer those. Everybody heard that noise. She's still there. She didn't fall off her chair. It's
nope.
Oh. Hey, you're welcome, Pamela, and thanks. And Esther, you're so right. Those machines, I saw this earlier, are so quiet. And you know, her video camera's right there, so you can't even see that.
It is literally right here, which is why it's just so crazy. Okay, let's see if we can
bring you back up. Brother posted on the Facebook page the link to Emily's project. It's not on YouTube, so I'm going to make sure I bring it up here for a second. All of you following on YouTube, if you want to just take a screenshot of that, or you can always go back and watch the replay to get that. So, all right, Emily, let's see what you got.
All right, I'm back. All right, so trying to get it so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so we have 2 steps sort of left in this project, and then we'll add the vinyl. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put some, I think these are grommets, right? Not rivets. I always like get confused between those 2 things, but the holes, we're going to put a hole.
That's a grommet.
That's a grommet. I know, I've said it wrong before, and then I like second guess myself every time. So we're going to put that through on the bottom corners so that we can get a place to thread the string through, and then I'll show you how it goes. It's a little bit confusing around, but what I'm going to try to do here is just put on some sticky stabilizer in the corner rather than get out some iron-on. So because this fabric, I'm a little bit uncertain about it pulling, just because it does have a tiny bit of stretch, then I want to make sure that I'm reinforcing it. So that's why I'm actually going to put on both sides of the fabric some sticky stabilizer. I probably have squares that are a little bigger than I need. Might be a little overkill here, but better that than too small. And I just had like a scrap that I cut into 4 pieces. So my sizing is not exact. You probably could get away with like a 2-inch by 2-inch. And you're going to put some sticky stabilizer, or you could grab some iron-on stabilizer and throw that in the corner of your bag as well. But unless you're really confident in your fabric, I like to put some stabilizer in the corner. And then I was just thinking, wow, how easy would it be to use sticky, because then I don't have to iron it. So little experiment today. All right, so now we're going to turn that right side out. Poke out those corners that now are stabilized. And this will get softer over time. Okay, so if you feel like, oh, the corners are really stiff, don't worry about it. That is not going to stay that way. That stabilizer will soften. You'll be moving it around. We just really need it to kind of hold in place while we're putting those grommets in. And then after that, it can get used and softened. So I have, I don't have a press. I just have the hammer system. So I have the 2 pieces, and I'm going to hammer on here. Sorry, I'm just going to bring this, I feel like, a little bit closer. I was trying to get myself in there, but that's not working. So we're just
gonna, oh, that's way better. And it's
way better. Sorry. I was trying to make it bigger than I should have, and this is better. Okay, so we have it flattened out. I'm making sure that the stabilizer is flattened inside. I have the 2 pieces, and then you need to find one of these times I'm going to open this up, and I'm only going to have like one side of the piece. So I never restock this. I just always assume that they'll be here. Okay, so they should fit one over another. And one of the pieces has a lip that's a little bit taller. So they're actually very similar looking pieces. They're not not super distinctive. And then I'm going to take these little scissors. If these don't work, I'll get something else out. But I'm just going to try to cut the smallest of holes here. And I'm going to sort of make like an X in the fabric and then hope that I can stick that grommet in there. So I don't like to cut too much of the fabric out because then it's just easier for it to pull out later. So let's see if we can stick this through. Okay, yep, so it's coming through the other side. Then I'm going to take the piece that goes over it. And this is thicker fabric, so I'm going to have to make sure I sort of shove it on. And it actually is staying on really nicely because that fabric is so thick, but you can see how I have a nice hole there in the corner. So let's go ahead and set that. Just a few little bangs there, and then we have it's all set in and nice on there. Okay, so that's one side. We're going to do the same on the other side. Take a spot in the corner. You can see I'm not really measuring, but approximately 1 inch sort of on all sides diagonal in the corner is probably where I'm estimating the placement to be. If it's too close, then you kind of get in the seams. If it's too far in, then you lose space in your bag, and you don't want to do that either. So see where this goes. Okay, and then we'll shove this part over it. If I can. So if you can't get your second piece over, then that's where you'd have to trim out some of that extra fabric. But if you just play around with it, it seems to go in even with the thick fabric. Okay. Now we have a nice, our square bag. We have the casing at the top, and we have the holes or with the grommets. You could also, if you don't have a grommet and don't really want to buy a whole set, you could sew in a buttonhole. I would still use the interfacing, but then you could use a buttonhole to put your laces through. So I'm going to measure this bag by going from one grommet to the top, across and back down. And I'm going to say that's a good length for my strap. And then we're going to cut 2 of those. This cording is really weird with the inside wanting to escape the outside. And so sometimes the laces gets really weird. So usually I end up burning the ends, but I probably won't light fire for you this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are. So you'll have to just, if yours is having the same thing, know that that's melting it is a good way to keep that from totally unraveling. Okay, so we're going to start by threading the cording through the top part. And I think I'm going to tie just a single knot here to help me grab onto this a little bit better. Okay, so I have my elastic threader that you can, or anything threader, and I'm threading it through one side of the casing at the top. Then we're going to come out the other side, and then with this string, you're going to go back through the other one. So we actually will have a loop on that side of the casing. Okay, so come back through. And then take this off. And now these threads or this cord gets put through the grommet on that side and untie my knot. And then you can tie this in a knot to each other. And so then we'll have one side finished. Okay, so that is one side of the bag completed, and you can see it cinches up, and then here is like the little backpack strap that you could wear. And then when you uncinch it, it's long enough that this can lay fairly flat. I maybe could have done it a little bit longer, but then we do the other side, and then the opposites work together when you're pulling the bag to open and close it. So Again, I'm just tying a knot, I think, to give this something more to grip onto, but you could try it without. And now we're threading through the side of the bag that has the loop cord from the last time we threaded it through. So this one is going through opposite directions from the opposite side. So there'll be 2 cords running through each side of the casing. Okay, and then we're going to, just like before, go back through when we get to that other side. And pull that out. Okay, and I'm going to untie this knot again. And then take this side through the bottom and tie that knot again. So I actually like having this where it's sort of free flowing to an extent through this grommet, because I feel like it's easier to rearrange these straps if they get off. My son has a bag. I don't know where he got it. It was from some event. And one of these straps gets way longer than the other side, but they're fixed at this point on the bag. It can't really slide. And so it's really difficult actually to get it to sort of flatten back out. So I like to have this where it can move. So you can see this knot has actually moved up a little bit, but that's okay. We'll just sort of move between these 2 spots. And if it gets in the way, then you can just readjust it. So, okay, we now have this sack. We can cinch it up, put our things inside. Definitely need to finish the ends of these cords, but I will do that later. They're tied off, so they should be pretty secure. All right, so that is the sack. And you could stop right here using whatever fabric you want and just have a nice cinch sack. Easy to sew, great for using up scraps of fabric and giving yourself some options with the sack. But we are not going to stop there. We're going to add some cool vinyl to this and hopefully add one more fun dimension to this. So I'm going to take my
Emily, I got to tell you, that is such a cute project. Even before you add that vinyl, that was fast, easy. Everybody watching, she literally started this beginning to end, and we're not even 30 minutes. That's awesome.
It's a really quick sew. I mean, you saw you can just use a regular sewing machine. You don't need any fancy machines or stitches for it. And it is, easy to put on there. So I'm trying to use this flocked vinyl, which is pretty thick. And I might have to grab a different mat that's stickier to make sure it is sticky enough. Let's see if this one is better. So when you're using heat transfer vinyl, you want to make sure, I might have to get different. Let me grab some different vinyl for a second. This one is just really curvy and not wanting to behave.
I have some of that. Actually, I just finished. Did you all watch the Tooth Fairy pillow? I have. Oh, by the way, I did spell Kira's name wrong. It's E-I, not I-E. So I have to rip out all those letters. But here, I have it right here in case you all missed this. This was a couple weeks ago. But I cut all of the felt fabric on the, no, I spelled this one right. I cut all the felt fabric on the ScanNCut. And my mat, after doing cutting, I cut letters for all my nieces and nephews, which there's quite the list. So you only saw one. But my mat was a little bit of a hot mess. And then I tried to cut something like vinyl. It didn't work. I had to clean my mat.
I know. I'm thinking these mats need to be clean. However, I do think part of it was that vinyl. I was trying to use flocked vinyl because I thought, oh, that'll be really cool to be like puffy letters. But I'm not going to mess with it right now because it was not wanting to behave on there. And
You're like, not live.
I don't want to deal with it. Okay, so this will switch to maroon, which will actually probably look cool on the gray. And then we're going to slide over here to the ScanNCut. I did already transfer the design to, oh, let's see. It went to sleep, but I don't know if you can see, probably not. I need to work on the lighting in here. Okay, so you can see that I have a design on here, but what we do need to do, and I will show you that right now. Sorry, you're gonna get sick here. Is we're gonna edit it, because what I didn't do is there are letters on here and I did not put this in reverse. In heat transfer vinyl, you always have to reverse the image because it cuts it backwards. So let's hit the edit button. We're going to object edit. And then right here, this little button with the 2 arrows, if I push that, it reverses it, but it didn't reverse the whole thing. Okay, so let's go back. And I have to try and select. There we go. Okay, so there were some little pieces of the vinyl or the cut over there that weren't selected. This isn't melded into one solid grouped object. So now we can go back to object edit. We're going to uh-oh. It's not doing it. Okay, I'll show you my computer because that's way easier. Can I can't really screen share, right? I'll just.
Yeah, you can screen share.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. And while she's screen sharing, I have a question. By the way, Cindy, yes, that would make an awesome laundry bag. I love that. But I saw somebody asking, how do you clean your mats? Who was that? Yeah. So Leslie, if you use baby wipes work.
Yes.
And make sure that they're alcohol free. And
Yes.
you just wipe them really good. And it kind of brings that stickiness back too.
Yeah, it actually, you'd be surprised how much fuzz is on your mat that you can't see. I always think, oh, why isn't it sticky? It's not really dirty. And then I take a wipe to it and it pulls off so much stuff that is obviously blocking the stickiness. So yeah, it makes a big difference. Okay, can you see my Canvas workspace?
No, you might have to click an extra button to get that shared.
Okay. I do or you do? Share.
You
okay.
do. Oh, here you are. I got you.
Okay, good. Good technology. All right. So
the magic of technology.
When this little corner here, when I was reversing it on the ScanNCut screen, this part was not reversing. So that's going to be really weird. I don't want that. So we want to make sure we're reversing the whole image. So I'm going to make sure I'm selecting, which I thought the whole thing was selected before. And then you can go up here to the edit button. And then here's that same flip button that was on the ScanNCut screen. So technically you should be able to do it on the screen. And I've done it lots, but I just don't know why it wasn't picking up the whole thing. But now let's hit it. And then we can see how the whole image, all the pieces are reversed, which is great. And then this is not going to set us back really at all because it's so easy now to transfer this to my machine we're going to export. I know things have been hidden, transfer, and then it's good to go. So it's really that simple. I'm going to stop sharing now. And it's that simple to edit on your computer or laptop and then just transfer back. So I really do love editing just because it's a bigger screen generally and easier for me to manipulate on there. So now we want to go to retrieve data and we're going to push this one with the little Wi-Fi button because that's how I've sent it. Both of these devices are hooked up to the Wi-Fi in my house. And then we're going to retrieve it. And now it is a reversed image. So easy to go and do. And the next thing is we're going to load the mat into the machine. Okay, so line it up, push this mat button and let it go in. And then I am just going to check the sizing real quick because I didn't check 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. This little patch is big enough. I just didn't want to cut off part of it, but I realized I just kind of cut this scrap and didn't check the size of my decal. So I think this is going to be good. I'm just checking that it's reversed. This is in the right spot. And I love the grid lines on the screen because I can easily compare. All right, now it's asking me, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to cut, draw, emboss, foil, all the things. I want to cut it. And then I do want to make sure the half cut is on. And when you're using heat transfer vinyl, you need to use a half cut because we want to cut through the vinyl, but we don't want to cut through the protective clear layer that's underneath. Okay, so that's why we use a half cut. If you're cutting paper or really anything besides vinyl, you want to cut all the way through this to the mat. You don't want it half cut. But for sticky vinyl or heat transfer, you definitely want to use the half cut, which is already on. And then we're going to go ahead and hit start and let it cut its thing. It says it's going to take 1 minute. So super fast to go through there. And while it's doing that, I'll find my little picking tool. And
hey, Emily, what ScanNCut model are you using?
This is the DX85, I believe. Okay. So this is the mass market one that you can buy in stores or on Amazon, and it is still so fabulous. So lots of things. Right. I have played around, you know, all the models do more, but this one is a great starter one if you're looking for one that can cut fabric and a lot of, you know, other things. All right, so let's pull this off. And then we'll bring it over here. Take you on a little ride. And so I kind of hold it up to the light so I can find the edge of one of the cut lines and then start picking there. So just going to kind of grab that. And then just have to kind of pull. Sometimes if I can get a good piece started like this, and this is obviously this is what I don't want that I'm pulling off, I will just use my fingers to sort of remove some of the bigger pieces, and then I'll go back and use the tool for the smaller pieces that I have to be more delicate with. Okay, and around the corners, depending on your vinyl, you might have to just make sure that it did really cut all the way through. I'm thinking this. There is difference in vinyl, so know that. It's not always best to try and save money on vinyl. It doesn't cut great. Okay, so just, yeah, I have to just use a combination of what I can pull off, and then the tool if I have to get exact in a corner or if it's not coming off. And then the reason I keep holding this up is because when it's on my mat, I can't really see, like, am I pulling on the right thing?
I have to do that too, because, you know, if the vinyl accidentally wraps around and gets stuck on your project, the whole thing is like kibosh.
Right. And I don't want to be ripping,
how I know that.
Ripping something that I shouldn't be, because I can get like a little aggressive here. So I definitely am trying to make sure, okay, is what I'm pulling what I actually want to be pulling? Okay, so you can see it's coming.
It looks good.
Yeah, it's just not a quick process, but you'll get there.
Okay. Good luck, Marianne. I just saw your note on here. Good luck. Good luck. I get the fun part of reading everybody's comments. They're loving this project, by the way. And everybody's happy to be back in your sewing space again.
I know. I did my first live show yesterday in, I think, all summer. So I was so happy to be back. But I just decided at the beginning of summer that I just was going to take time and not worry about Wednesday afternoons, making sure we didn't have any plans. So it was kind of freeing, and but it's really good to be back. Okay.
So yeah, Connie, by the way, you do reverse all the vinyl. Yes.
Yes. Okay. If you're using sticky craft vinyl, no, because the protective layer is actually on the bottom for sticky vinyl. But if you are doing heat transfer vinyl, you do, because this is what I just cut. You can see it's backwards. This is how I'm going to iron it on to the bag. All right. So, and we'll put the iron on this plastic. Oh, I just see someone saying they bought a light board. That is actually a great idea. My kids totally have a light board. And I should be using that.
I never, I have one. I never thought of using that for cutting the vinyl.
I think it might be helpful. I'll have to check. I'll have to like look into that. Okay, so we're going to put it on. And actually, I'm going to put it lower because as I'm thinking about when this gets all cinched up here, I still want to kind of be able to see this decal. So let's put it down lower so we can see it. And try to put it in the middle. I could get a ruler. I could. All right. So let's grab the iron that's hopefully hot. And with heat transfer vinyl, you want to not only apply hot heat, but you also want to apply pressure. So I am pushing with my hands here to apply pressure between this felt ironing board and the iron. If you have a heat press, of course, then that does all the pressure for you. But if you're using an iron, then you have to create the pressure with your hands. And yeah, put that pressure on there. We're going to do a little quick check in a minute. And I'll tell you the kind of thing that what I look for, what's my key to knowing if I've got the vinyl hot enough and long enough on there. I have usually a little sort of tip that I look for. So just want to make sure I got this nice and hot on here. And I see someone's talking about getting the ScanNCut, getting that tiny little eye. It gets all the cuts. Like I said, if I have a problem with it not cutting, 100% of the time, it's not the ScanNCut, it's the vinyl. And I'm not kidding. Like if I switch to a different vinyl, then my problems are solved. So it's definitely does all the cuts that I need and more than I need. Okay, so what I like to look for when I'm doing this is that I can sort of see the grain of the fabric through the vinyl. That lets me know that I've gotten it really smushed into the fabric and it's not going to come off, because I have had vinyl projects quite early on in my experimenting that I feel like I did not put it on long enough or press hard enough, and then after a few washes it does come off. So we'll be able to see this better when I peel this off. I'm going to let this cool for a minute because it's sometimes better to stick it or peel it when it's hot, but I feel like this is too hot and it is wanting to peel off. So we're just going to give it a minute to cool.
A minute to cool. While that is cooling, I saw Cindy on here. Oh, a lot of people rolled in later. That's cool. But hey, this is totally off topic. But Cindy, yes, you can use a lightweight cotton. That would be beautiful in this jacket. Emily, we're starting a sew along for a trench coat next week.
I saw that yesterday. That is super exciting. I've never made one.
Great with this bag, actually.
Yes.
And you have Darlene says, thank you for your hoodie pattern, Emily.
Oh,
she's using it.
Make sure you share pictures. I want to see. I always love to see. The results are always so different. You know, I envision one thing in my head and then everyone comes up with such amazing variations to it that I do love to see pictures. Okay, so on here, I don't know if you can probably not see detailed enough, but I like to press it far enough where the vinyl doesn't look 100% flat anymore. It actually, some of the grain of the fabric, and this has some grain in it, starts to come through. So I am going to press this just another 20 seconds to make sure that it's really adhered on, but you did get to see how it looked on there. And actually, I think I'm glad that the black didn't work and I was able to, that I switched to the maroon color. So I see Caroline asking about pressing the vinyl directly with the carrier sheet. And absolutely, I thought that's what the sheet was for. The carrier
That's what, yeah.
I think you're thinking about craft vinyl. It's like a contact paper that you use to transfer it. That's not a heat. That you don't use that. That's for sticky vinyl. So this is for heat transfer vinyl, which comes with this protective sheet on it and is really thick.
Ellen's making her spoiled dog a lunch. You know, your dog could use a bag like this too, Ellen. That would be very fun. And Amelia wants to learn how to use her ScanNCut. So Amelia, don't forget that on Brother's YouTube channel, you can binge watch episodes on the ScanNCut on there. There's a ton of stuff on there. Might help you.
Yes, so many things. So yeah, you just use the sheet that comes with the vinyl. And here's the roll of vinyl that I had. And you can see this matte side is the vinyl. That's what we cut. And this shiny side, that's actually the protective layer that is now being pressed here. And then we'll peel off and get rid of it. So you can, like I just did, you can use it multiple times. Okay, now I can totally see my fabric through the vinyl. It's like, I don't know, it looks different. You probably can't see it, but it's definitely better. So anyway, it just has some texture that I can see through the vinyl. And then I know, oh, that is going to be it's going to be really stuck on there. And then this, we're just going to throw because now this is extra. So
that was an awesome project.
So cute. So
Connie,
easy.
get your ScanNCut out of the box.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Always. I'm going to switch this here so I can say hi.
Come back to us. I'll take this down so you're back up. Okay, so do you have any questions for Emily? Because that was a super cute project. Super cute. You always make it look so easy. Joanne said you're going to have everybody asking, where did you buy that?
Yeah.
So true.
So cute. So there, so I think if you're putting a label, put it lower, because if it was up here, you'd see it'd be all in these cinches when you're wearing it. And then you wouldn't really be able to see, or when it's hanging, on a hook or whatever in your room, I think it's definitely better to have the label lower than higher so that you can see, especially if you have like multiples and you have them for different, purposes. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's some really good ideas. Debbie's going to use some old repurpose, some old sweatshirts. That's a good idea. I have a bag of like old fishing shirts. Yes. I have a bag of Wynn's old fishing shirts. I wonder if he'd care. I should probably ask. Well, but that would be cool. You know what would be a really cool thing for that, Emily? Towels.
Yes.
That are, that are kind of worn out a little bit. You could add some.
Part of it is worn out or ripped or whatever. Yeah.
And maybe add a little embroidery, and that would be a great bag to carry to the beach and stuff like that.
Yes.
A lot of good ideas. Very cute.
Yeah. So
saying thank you.
It's good. Nice and easy and simple, and hopefully, you can find some uses for these. Again, you can use buttonholes if you don't want to do the grommets. You could use shoelaces, or you can just buy this cording by the roll. I'm down to almost the bottom of this. I've been using this gray cording for several years now, so I'm going to have to buy a new one and maybe change up the color that all my projects have with the cording. But
that sounds amazing. So by the way, if you can see scrolling down below, the Brother website, if you want to find a Brother dealer, there's Emily's website. Are you doing your live shows on Wednesdays now? Are you back on track?
Yes, I'm back on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yes. Stop in and see me at 1:30 and then go over and see Emily at 3. Your Wednesday will be full of creativity.
Yes. Good Wednesday afternoon.
Yes. So Emily, great project. Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for watching Brother. Thank you for letting your ambassadors take over your page. If you ever have an idea for a show, be sure to drop it below. They'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, share your photos and look above. Use hashtag Brother Sews and hashtag Brother ScanNCut so they can see what you're working on. Thanks, Emily.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.